you about mesothelioma and how it presents itself in the human body. Now, I often get a phone call at my office from a potential new client, either the victim or their family member, in which they tell me that either they or their dad has just been diagnosed with this really complicated word to say, mesothelioma. And they have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of information that they need that they just don't have yet. And medically, the situation is often very similar. And what happens is this person who worked with asbestos, because mesothelioma is caused by asbestos, this person worked with asbestos 25, 35, 60 years ago, has now been diagnosed with mesothelioma. And they started to complain of some symptoms. They were weak, they were losing weight, and very importantly, they were very short of breath. They went to their doctor, their regular family doctor, an internist, and sometimes the internist will take an x-ray, or perhaps they'll send them on to a lung specialist, a pulmonologist, and an x-ray will be taken. That's really one of the first tests that are taken to determine what's going on in the chest. In this diagram, here we have an x-ray of the chest, which shows this whited out area of the right lung. This is the area where there's an abnormality. This black area is what a doctor would expect to see, and the x-ray has picked up that there's an abnormality on the right side. We later are going to find out that this abnormality is a mesothelioma tumor. Now, having had that x-ray, this patient, this client of mine, then is referred on to either their pulmonologist if they're not seeing one already, or to a surgeon. But that doctor is reviewing all of the signs and symptoms, as well as any testing, whether it be x-rays or perhaps CAT scans, CT scans, to determine what is going on with this person's chest and lungs. After the signs and symptoms combine with the diagnostic testing, x-rays, CT scans, perhaps a PET scan, after all of those things tell the physicians involved that there's something going on in this person's chest, in their lungs, or in the area outside their lungs, it must be definitively diagnosed. That's usually done by a biopsy. The patient is sent to a surgeon who will take a biopsy either intraoperatively or, if it's possible, in an ambulatory nature through a needle biopsy. But either way, a tissue biopsy is the gold standard. It's what's preferred so that a definitive diagnosis can be made. Now, referring to this diagram, this is that same right lung that we saw a moment ago in the x-ray. And this area here is the lung parenchyma, or the tissue or the meat of the lung. The lung is a spongy organ, and this area right here, this whitish yellow area, is the actual mesothelioma tumor. We see in this depiction all of this lung parenchyma, all this lung tissue is adhesed and scarred over. That's what's known as asbestosis. Now, asbestos is an indestructible fiber, a teeny tiny indestructible fiber that gets lodged in the human lung and never leaves. If there's fibers in our lungs from when we were 20 years old, they'll be there when we're 60. And these fibers cause cellular damage and fibrosis, scarring. And asbestosis is a definitive signal of a lifelong exposure to asbestos, a lot of intense asbestos exposure. Also a signal of asbestos exposure is this tumor. This tumor is a mesothelioma malignancy. And that is exactly the area that would be biopsied by the surgeon to determine what is going on with this patient's chest. Once that biopsy is obtained, it's often confirmed by another hospital. The patient's informed that they have malignant mesothelioma. Now, that's a little bit of information about the course from presentation of symptoms to the point of initial biopsy and confirmed diagnosis of mesothelioma. Now, you have questions about mesothelioma. I'm Joe Williams, and at my office, we deal with these issues every day. We represent mesothelioma victims and their families each and every day. And if you have questions, we can answer your questions. I invite you to call our office and we'll answer your questions. Thank you.